For my part, it worries me to spend so much time by myself. Alone.
Yes, being alone for extended periods, also known as being antisocial, is a serious problem.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until...
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Well, welcome to part 3 in the series that no one is watching, that no one cares about. I must say I'm seeing millions of views on fake news stories about conspiracies and 3 shooters and whatnot. And so, yeah, I don't really expect anyone to really take note of what really needs to be taken note of, other than those of you who are here. You guys are the true crime rocket scientists. So in this analysis, we're going to deal with the problem with antidepressants. Are antidepressants the solution, especially for young people? Can you carry on consuming social media, carry on being online all the time, carry on just being in that isolated state and then treating that problem with antidepressants? Or is there some other solution? And I think one way to properly address that question is to simply ask the very simple question and ask it in a sort of a practical way. Do antidepressants help us deal with reality? A lot of depressed people are overwhelmed with reality. So if you take an antidepressant, can you suddenly deal with reality better? Do they make us feel better about everything, or do they help us deal, respond, react, improve reality? So I'm saying, in a real sense, do antidepressants improve reality in the real world? Or do antidepressants just sort of push reality to one side and help make you feel better about reality? Meanwhile, reality is what it is. I would say the answer is no. And so why not? Why do antidepressants not help us actually manage and improve our own realities in a practical sense? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, if you're finding this analysis very interesting, you'll probably find a lot more interesting in our series on the Rex Human deep dives, where we burrow into these psychological rabbit holes in a lot more detail. And I'll be dealing with the next topic either today or tomorrow in our Rex Human deep dive series, the sequel to it, where we'll be talking about perversion. So look out for that. If you're enjoying this analysis, please like, share, leave a comment. There will also be a follow-up to this where, after stating the problem, we will look at this, and I think in a fascinating way, what is the road back to happiness? What is the road back to psychological resilience? You really don't want to miss that. So if you're finding this worthwhile, if it's helping you, if you find it meaningful, please do consider hitting the thanks button. And let's get started. Now, the problem with antidepressants is that by taking them, you sort of take away the sting of bad feelings. And sometimes that's necessary if you're paralyzed, if something really, really traumatic has happened to you. But the other side of it is that sting is something that we need to respond to. We need to find our way out of that. And if you can't find your way out, taking medication is going to prevent you from solving that problem. And it's not only taking away the sting of bad feelings, they also take away the feelings of joy. But in general, it is helping remove the individual from reality or from dealing with reality. And so someone who decides that shooting Trump is the solution to their reality, you can already see that is someone who's gotten really far removed from reality. They probably spent a lot of time, too much time, on their own. Now, the stats surrounding this are mixed bags. Some stats show these drugs being good to mitigate violent behavior, while others seem to demonstrate the potential to aggravate violent feelings. According to an article in the Mail Online, the controversial idea is not totally unheard of. A study from the Institute for Safe Medication Practices, a non-profit watchdog group based in Pennsylvania, ironically enough, drew a link between antidepressants and violent behaviors. So the question does arise, was Thomas Crooks on any kind of medication? If he was, what was he? The fact that he Googled something about a depressive disorder and his parents were both counselors does seem to suggest a higher likelihood than with most other young people that he was probably being treated with antidepressants. But do we have any confirmation for that? Now, according to the article, researchers collated more than 780,000 reports of adverse effects linked to 484 drugs. Almost 2,000 involved violence, including acts like homicide or physical assaults. That's quite a lot. They also identified 31 drugs, that's 6% of the total, that were disproportionately linked to violent events. These included 11 antidepressants such as Prozac, some ADHD medications, and a few sedatives. So you really have this horrible situation where some people who are depressed are more likely to be violent than the average person in the population. Then they treat their depression with medication, and this medication can make them even more violent. And so what this seems to show is that simply depressing the symptoms isn't a solution. And as I say, I don't think medicating a problem fixes the problem, it just kicks the can down the road. Now, according to the Mail Online, a Swedish cohort study found a link between SSRIs and violent crime convictions, but the results varied by age group. A 2016 review of over 70 trials found an increase in aggression in children and adolescents taking SSRIs, but not in adults. Still, other studies have found that antidepressants may have anti-aggressive effects, and it is difficult to separate whether the depression itself causes violence. It does seem to me that there's more of a link in terms of depression and antidepressants with young people. You see, the problem with depression and antidepressants is the one takes you away from reality, right? And the other takes you even further from it. At some point, a person does have to face the world. And I do think that Thomas Crooks doing what he ultimately did was his way, obviously a warped way, a deluded way, a kind of deviant way of facing the world, but it was nevertheless his fucked up way of facing the world. And sorry to say, the longer you are out of the world, the longer you are away from the world, the more the world will have left you behind, and the more unsettling the experience of fear of missing out, FOMO, and trying to play catch up to a world that has gone on to invent itself while you've been hiding away from yourself. And I have the feeling Crooks felt that is exactly what is taking place. All his friends were sort of graduating into reality. They were having friends, girlfriends, going to parties, right, enjoying themselves, and he was just stuck. It must have felt like he was going backwards. And what he did was he essentially giving up on himself and giving up on the world, but also trying to give the world one last kick in the pants, his revenge, as a way to say, I didn't deserve this. Now, according to the article, at 20 years old, Crooks's brain was not fully developed and wouldn't have been until around the age of 25. So one way of dealing with this is to say, maybe be a bit more patient. You're still not who you need to be. There's still some room for growth. Give yourself a chance. According to the article, Dr. Hans stressed that everyone deals with their depression differently. So if you listening to this and saying, wow, I was bullied, wow, I was depressed, wow, I was on antidepressants and I didn't deal with it this way. Well, everyone deals with it differently. Everyone's symbolic framework is different. Everyone's situation is different. And yet the profile of mass shooters is typically the same. All of them are depressed. And so for them, there definitely is a profile. And so Dr. Hans refers to a subpopulation of people who may respond to antidepressants with not wanting to live ideation or thoughts and or actions. I think it's very dangerous giving antidepressants, especially to young people, because I think it implies that a complex problem can be fixed passively by simply ingesting a pill. And I think the complex problem of life for a young person has to be fixed actively by going out into the world, by testing oneself, by developing resilience, by developing expertise, by finding out who you are, by letting the world know who you are, by being rejected by a certain part of the world but accepted by another part of it. the reality is the problem of life has to be fixed with courage. You can't get away from that. And if you feel you don't have courage, you've got to find it somewhere, right? Vincent van Gogh found it somewhere. It might be a very long and very difficult struggle, but over time you may find it somewhere.
Theo, what am I in the eyes of most people?
The problem of life has to be fixed with courage, and by reaching out with courage to have experiences that improve one's sense of esteem and agency. And so what do we see again and again from these losers, these depressed young people? Well, they are cowering, they are hiding away from life, they've withdrawn. That whole antisocial effort is a way of hiding away from life. And they eventually lash out in this final desperate act where they try to sort of establish themselves as they are sort of exiting the building, kind of thing. Now, it's a fact that agency builds esteem. Esteem underpins agency. If someone else takes it away from you, you have to work. You have to put in effort to find your way back from it. And a pill can't do that.
Who am I in the eyes of most people? A nobody. A non-entity. An unpleasant person.
So I think part of the solution to this is coming out of denial, not hiding from it in antidepressants, is saying, well, you know what, I am alone. Well, I know, I do see that not a lot of people like me, right? So that's part of it. I think the other part of it is where you decide who you mean to be, and that regardless of what other people think, you find some value in yourself. Because if you can't find value in yourself, then why should somebody else? So it does start with you, right? And that is going to be part of our conversation in the next episode. I'm not going to take it further than that, but if you have found something of value in this and you want to explore it further, I do want to recommend you go to the Team Peachtree channel. We'll be doing another episode of Van Gogh Letters. Some of these clips that I played in this analysis are from documentaries on Van Gogh. If you want a portrait of resilience, if you want an example of someone who negotiates that psychological territory, someone who's alone, someone who's not appreciated, someone who's not recognized, someone who's rejected by society. He was even kicked out of the town of Al, right? And someone who nevertheless comes out of that whole process with self-esteem, with someone who creates his own identity. Vincent van Gogh is an incredible model, is incredible inspiration in terms of that aspect. So I will be doing another Van Gogh Letters 88 on Sunday. So look out for that. I'll put a link to that live stream in the description. So look out for that. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.